Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series on Bay Area restaurant hacks with a shot at the Chinese Jian Bing inspired by the version found at Tian Jin Dumplings here in Oakland, California. Now, Tian Jin Dumplings is one of those classic snack shops here in the Bay that pretty much just makes the one thing, but does that one thing really well, and their one thing is the Jian Bing. Now, to be fair, true to their name, they do also have a wonton soup, but I've only ever had their Jian Bing, and I feel like that's what they're best known for too, so I don't know. Either way, for those who are not familiar, a Jian Bing is a Chinese street food classic that is colloquially referred to here in the States as a Chinese crepe, which, as you'll come to find, is actually a pretty accurate description. It's made with a loose flour-based crepe batter, which is then coated in egg and finally folded over a Chinese fried donut YOUTIAO, or as I've always called them, oil sticks, which is their direct translation. For today's version, we're gonna go with some store-bought YOUTIAO, which you can generally find in the freezer section of most Chinese markets. But we'll certainly tackle this bit soon too, and I'll also include one of my favorite YOUTIAO recipes in the description as well, if you can't find it in stores. Okay, so let's get into it. I said everybody wants the food. I still got dreams, but they don't love me like they used to love it. And I'm reminded of how bad I used to. Okay, so diving right in, I'm kicking things off here by slicing up the only vegetable in today's recipe, which are 4 green onions. We're going to be using all of these in their raw form today, so I'm slicing up the whites here as thinly as possible to take off some of their bite, and then giving the greens a large bias cut so that their leafy qualities pop out in the final dish. Then next up is our crepe batter. This is 3/4 cup of AP flour and 1 1/4 cup of water plus a pinch of kosher salt. I'm mixing this up to combine and switching to a fork or a whisk if you don't mind cleaning those dumb things, just to make sure that we don't have any errant lumps floating around. And then we're moving on to our sauce. So for our sauce element, this is technically optional at this point since a Chinese donut, as the name might imply, is already quite tasty on its own. I'd like to add a little bit of spice to mine though, and I know that Tian Jin Dumplings does this as well. So I'm adding 2 tablespoons of Chinese doubanjiang chili paste plus 1 tablespoon of Laoganma chili crisp oil, and then combining it with a tablespoon each of dark soy sauce and sesame oil. You'll notice a notable lack of any looser liquid ingredients today like soy sauce or vinegar. That's actually very intentional here. We need our sauce to be more paste-like in quality today in order for it to spread over the crepe later on, so I'm sticking with some very concentrated ingredients today. Finally, we're taking a look at our pre-made YOUTIAO donuts here. So, these come out of the freezer section in most Asian markets, and they actually freeze and reheat really well, so I love this as a quick shortcut. They are essentially made up of deep-fried batter, kind of like a French cruller, and most typically are eaten plain with a bit of sweetened or savory warm soy milk. These frozen ones are going to work great for our purposes today since we're just going to wrap these in crepes, but if you have your heart set on making them yourself, or if you can't find them, I'll include a link to a great recipe in the description as well. I'm warming these up in a 325-degree F oven for 4 to 5 minutes and then slicing them in half. Then finally, I'm whisking up my eggs here to combine, and we're heading over to the stove. I've got my cast iron skillet heating up here at medium-low heat. Now, I actually thought that a Teflon or maybe even a carbon steel skillet might have worked better here. We're trying to emulate those large griddle tops that you see in crepe shops, which have the ability to change temperature very quickly. Now, I'm going with a cast iron skillet today because it's the most reliably non-stick, flat-bottom skillet that I own. However, the high heat retention properties of cast iron does make it very difficult to quickly change the temperature of the pan, which is very important in something delicate like a crepe, and it resulted in more than a few burnt crepes. Not so good. So choose your pan accordingly. I'm adding just a single tablespoon of peanut oil here to get things started, and then I'm adding my crepe batter to coat the surface of the pan. I'm giving this about a minute to set, and then I'm adding a single whisked egg on top and giving it 1 more minute for those eggs to set as well. Then I'm saying a little bit of a prayer, using a spatula to release the side of my crepe and flipping the whole thing over onto a large plate.
Then I'm very carefully sliding this back onto our pan, egg side down this time. Some of you might be wondering, isn't that pan hot? Aren't you burning your fingers right now, Wesley? Doesn't that hurt like hell? To which I would tell you, yes, it does. Ow. Finally, I'm spreading my sauce mixture over the top here with a brush and then adding my green onions followed by my YOUTIAO and folding the crepe up around it. Then I'm slicing this in half, topping it with some sesame seeds, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so these are one of my favorite quick Sunday breakfasts of all time, and if you keep a few frozen oil sticks in your freezer on standby, it's a really easy one to throw together at the last minute. They're super hearty and filling, they're rich in flavor and umami thanks to our sauce, and they're also super easy to eat on the go since they're nice and compact. This is probably why you see them at snack shops and street vendors like Tian Jin Dumplings so often. Now, I will admit that the crepe batter was a little bit tricky to get right, and it definitely took me at least 2 or 3 tries before it started looking halfway decent. But with a little bit of practice, this is easily one of the best 10-minute breakfast meals that I have ever made. It's also super adaptable too, so if you've got some leftover kimchi or daikon, bean sprouts, or whatever happens to be in your fridge, it will likely work out amazingly. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. This was one of my absolute favorite Chinese snacks when I was a kid, and I know I used to seek this stuff out on the dim sum carts any chance that I got. I promise a YOUTIAO recipe is coming up soon, but in the meantime, I definitely encourage using the frozen stuff as a shortcut because I honestly think that in a recipe like this, those things are so simple. At the very best, it's gonna taste as good as the pre-made stuff. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, do some interneting, and I'll see you soon.